Today's video is sponsored by good friends of the channel, Vite Ramen. Now, you guys know that I love Vite Ramen. It's good for you, unlike some other cheaper ramen. It's delicious and the company is just really good. They treat their employees well, they treat me well, so I'm a big fan. As I've been talking about for a while, last year, Vite Ramen actually unleashed their version 2.0 flavors on the world. There's even patch notes that you can read to see what's changed. But now in 2021, they've also released their first spicy flavor, Szechuan Chili. Now, Szechuan Chili was available on Kickstarter back in February of 2020, but is now available for general purchase and is very, very popular and delicious. It's the first spicy flavor, as I said, for Vite Ramen, but has the same nutritional benefits as the rest of their noodles. So if you like spice and like tasty noodles, there's really no missing out. As always, because Vite Ramen loves me, we do have a custom landing page, which I'll link in the top line of the description down below. Go check out the company, buy some noodles if you're interested. And if you use code EckhartsLadder, you'll get 15% off your purchase. You'll be supporting not only me, but also a great company. They asked me to put this on a spicy video, and I personally can't think of anything more spicy than blockade logistics. So with that being said, let's roll the intro. So, you want to invade the Star Wars galaxy. A few have tried with varying success, but if we look at what they did, we can create a blueprint for how we can do better ourselves. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. Today we'll be taking a look at 5 tips that you can use when invading the Star Wars galaxy. Now, as I joked about in the intro, there have been a few belligerents who have tried their hand at invading the Star Wars galaxy. Most notably, of course, we do have the Yuuzhan Vong, but we also have references to other galactic invaders, some imagined and some real, like the Nagai and the Toth briefly after the Battle of Endor. So let's imagine you're invading with no territory but a full armada of warships and troops. What's step 1? Obviously, timing. The Star Wars galaxy, unsurprisingly, is frequently, but not always, in a period of war, and governments are always changing, and the power of the centralized government or the most powerful government can also vary quite wildly. So when it comes to timing, for example, you probably wouldn't want to invade when the Empire or the Republic is at the height of their power, because they had consolidated large swaths of the galaxy, and in the case of the Empire, were also highly militarized. However, if you invaded perhaps during the post-Ruusan era of the Republic, when planetary systems were largely responsible for their own protection and the centralized government, the Republic itself, wasn't really fielding much of a navy, well, that's a much better time to invade, especially if you can take advantage of the limitations on weaponry and ship size that the Ruusan protections offered. But besides for just looking at whether there is a powerful centralized government, you also want to consider whether the galaxy is currently in a state of war. If you can invade as the New Republic is stretched thin trying to fight off various warlord factions, you've got some really good timing. Or you can invade the New Republic after they've been crippled by the Dark Empire, or the Republic after one of their many wars with the Sith, well, you should do so. Which actually ties in nicely to my second point, scouting. This is one thing the Yuuzhan Vong did sort of well. You need to get into the galaxy and get good information. The Yuuzhan Vong had infiltrators in galactic society before their fleet arrived. The best example would be Nominor, and he was able to keep and relay information about the state of the galaxy and help determine where the Yuuzhan Vong should invade. However, I think you need to do more than just integrate yourself within the galaxy. You need to effectively help make decisions about the invasion. Nominor, for example, should have helped the Yuuzhan Vong time their invasion better. They waited until after a peace had been formed between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant, which meant they invaded at a time where chaos was relatively low and the New Republic had had time to build a new generation of warships, including the Mediator and the Viscounts. On the other hand, admittedly, it can be difficult to get information out to an extragalactic threat. At the very best, you probably will not have two-way communication. Hopefully you can send some sort of signal, but if you can't, you should at least do what Nominor did, which was try to ferment as much unrest as possible. Something I would say he was mildly successful at before the invasion and much more successful at after. But let's move on to point number 3, and that is is location. The galaxy will always be split across various lines. Some of these are geographic. For example, the unknown region just has never been as well monitored or protected as the core, for example, but you also have political regions. Let's give a really good example of this. During the Galactic Civil War, the Rebel Alliance took advantage of the fact that various Moffs often wanted to keep their resources within their own territory and wouldn't help neighboring systems. Sometimes even because of rivalries, seeing a neighboring Moff suffer some sort of loss or damage would actually be politically beneficial. So the Rebel Alliance would choose a target right near where two territories met, knowing that basically Moff B would not be offering support to anything done on Moff A's territory. Then they could retreat, move somewhere else, and just basically take advantage of a lack of cooperation and a desire to protect a Moff's own interest versus the interest of the Empire as a whole. The Yuuzhan Vong took advantage of the fact that the New Republic wasn't really very concerned about things happening in the Outer Rim, and because they largely eliminated everybody on the planets they took, the existence of the Yuuzhan Vong was even doubted in the early stages of the war. And that's one thing that plays favorably to any invader, assuming you can somehow bypass the weird hyperspace anomaly that goes through the galaxy. If you can manage to stay in the Outer Rim for a while, you may be able to gain a foothold without incurring the wrath of the Empire or the Republic or the New Republic or whatever. Another good example would be to move into the unknown regions, a space where both the largest military force in the galaxy and yourself will be equally kind of disadvantaged. The unknown regions is home to perhaps tens of thousands or more small civilizations, the largest of which would probably be the Chiss. The Chiss are insular, so we saw factions like the Sai-Ruvi largely falling to Yuuzhan Vong invaders. Basically, the further away it is from the core, the harder it will be for a core centralized government like the Empire of the New Republic to project power. You gotta take advantage of that. My fourth tip would be don't overextend, and I mean that both in terms of territory and troops. That was probably the Yuuzhan Vong's most fatal flaw. They did too much in too short of a time period, and to be honest, they bled warriors. The Yuuzhan Vong also had the unique ability to quickly replace their ships, and they had no problem with ships, but they lost so many warriors in battles that their ground game really began to struggle. So don't overextend. You need to set up some sort of way to support yourself as you move through the galaxy. The Yuuzhan Vong's blitzkrieg was effective, but it left them with too much territory and basically left them open to counterattacks. I think ideally you want to capture planets in an area, set up supply lines, get your factories or whatever else established, and while you're doing that, you can be more aggressive, but do so with the purpose of destruction. Both the Empire and the New Republic were stretched very thin during their heyday, but had several worlds which would be absolutely devastating to lose. Coruscant, Kuat, Corellia, Mon Calamari, etc. Take advantage of the fact that you can destroy those planets and do serious damage to the faction you're fighting against without having to hold them, and you're set. This is like a quasi-stateless strategy, kind of similar to what the Alliance did. The Empire was slow. They had a massive numbers advantage, but they weren't very flexible. The rebels would get in there, they would do their damage, and they would leave, knowing they wouldn't have to hold any territory that they would have otherwise captured. The fact is, if you enter the galaxy and right away try to take the New Republic on and hold the core, you're not going to be able to do so. That's doubly true for the Empire, although maybe not so much with a post-Ruusan Republic. Instead, you want to hopefully secure territory somewhere where you can't be tied down. Stay flexible and work on eliminating key targets of the enemy, whether that's, and I don't mean just shipyards and factories, but also things like HoloNet transmitters and more. The Star Wars galaxy is also very diverse in alien species, and I don't think very many people are going to be able to immediately identify some species as extragalactic. So as you're doing this, we talked about having your spies and other individuals sort of integrated into the governments of the galaxy. You've got to start doing damage. The Yuuzhan Vong were able to infiltrate Kuat, they were able to infiltrate the Senate. You need to be fighting a 2 or 3 pronged battle here, not just in space and on the ground, but also through more non-traditional means. Finally, we have Force users, and this is a factor so important important to the Star Wars galaxy that it does deserve, I think, its own entry. And this is also a case where the Yuuzhan Vong did a pretty good job. The Yuuzhan Vong hunted Jedi specifically. They did invade at a relatively unfortunate time. Had they come 10 or 15 years earlier, Luke's Jedi would not have been nearly as well established, but working with what they had and not knowing previously that the Jedi would be a huge threat, they did a good job of pivoting and facing them. They captured Vergir. They turned the Jedi against the rest of the galaxy by destroying planets in the name of the Jedi, saying that they would leave sectors alone if they turned in Jedi, and they also developed tools specifically to kill Jedi. Voxen, for example. The Jedi honestly have a, at times, questionable reputation. Use that to your advantage. Use tools that will be effective against Jedi, like slug throwers. Again, do whatever you can through agents or sometimes outright to just make the galaxy hate each other. But there's other intangibles other than Jedi, just peculiarities to the Star Wars galaxy you should be aware of. I think droids are a great option for any invader because you can take advantage of existing droid factories, you can capture them, and as long as you have the resources, you can build up a lot in the way of forces without a whole lot of time needed. That's one reason why the CIS was able to mobilize so quickly with some funding. But guys, that's all I have for today. Those are just 5 good tips for anyone invading the Star Wars galaxy. There are more. For example, where possible, you want to be able to secure planetary resources as they exist. I'm talking shield generators, farms. This is something Thrawn discussed, and same with shipyards, of course. So if there's more you'd like me to cover, if you'd like a follow-up video, make sure to like this one, subscribe, and let me know down in the chat. Till next time though, guys, have a good one, be safe, and may the Force be with you.